Hello and welcome to GNN, a weekly Fallout-themed podcast brought to you by Shoddycast, makers of Hidden History and The Storyteller, a Fallout lore series. I'm your host, Charles Battersby, and with me is my co-host,
Austin Horrigan. Hello.
And we have a couple of special guests joining us this week. Austin, tell our audience a little bit about them.
Well, you may know that on our show we cover a little indie developed game by the name of Fallout, and we happen to have a couple of minor players from the development of this little indie title. We have Courtenay Taylor and Kal-El Bogdanove.
Hello.
Very talky. So Courtenay, tell everybody what you do on Fallout 4.
I am the voice of the female protagonist.
And Kal-El, what do you do for Fallout 4?
I was the lead voice and performance capture director for the game, which means I primarily worked with the two player characters and some of the more Central Quest-related NPCs over the course of a couple of years.
Which makes him Master Cat Herder as well.
Now, Courtenay, when you're not doing the female playable character for Fallout 4, what other work would people recognize you from?
You might know me as Jack from Mass Effect 2 and 3.
Woot.
Ada Wong in Resident Evil, Operation Raccoon City, Damnation, and 6. I also am the female player captain for the upcoming Firefly game.
Nice.
The Firefly Online game. And if you're Fallout junkies, I was also Gloria Van Graff and Lupe and a whole host of other characters in Fallout New Vegas.
And if you take a quick look online, our viewers can see that Courtenay has a massive list of games that include Saints Row and Halo, and it's literally dozens of titles. So, plus you do a lot of commercial voice work as well, I believe.
I do. I am voicing some Motrin spots right now and some Bear Skin for Bear Mineral spots. I was the voice of Caesar dog food for 10 years. You know, all the cute little spots with the white Westie dog.
Yeah,
and the convertible and stuff.
I love that Motrin voice. Every now and then, when you're working with voice actors, at the end of the session, they'll have an audition come in or something that they've got to lay down for the next day. And since you're already in the booth, it's common to just take 10 minutes and help them knock it out. And for a while, in the start of these Motrin commercials, Courtenay was working frequently on her Motrin voice, which is, I don't even know quite how to describe it.
It's a very pumped up mom.
Yes, but it's like it's a measure of, it's a lot of energy, but also like a lot of sensibleness. I don't know. It's very cool.
It's a lot.
So now, when you're doing the sole survivor in Fallout, how is she different from your natural speaking voice?
She's not. I mean, I went in with like ideas about making her different than me. And they sort of gently coaxed me away from my highfalutin ideas and coaxed me into something that was, I think a lot of the characters that I play are sort of heightened versions of different attitudes. You know, Jack is a very, stands out for a lot of people, but, she's me in a particular mood. And I think this character is more me as a mature adult that's capable of a lot of different emotions and grappling with a lot of different situations. So she's probably the closest thing to me ever.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is the hallmark of a Fallout game, as you guys well know, is that there's an enormous amount of range in the material. You know, we all know that they have this sort of ripple of dark humor running through the games, even when the situation is kind of dire. There are also, particularly in this game, some very intense, very naturalistic moments of emotion and gravitas. So, there was a lot less of an idea of wanting a particular take on the character, and a much greater emphasis on wanting a character who felt like a real person, like that you would encounter, outside of a post-apocalyptic fantasy, placed into that situation. And one of the things that was great about the way the Bethesda guys, Emil and Will and the rest of the sort of brilliant writing team that they have over there, as well as their audio team, one of the best things about their approach was that they cast two very talented actors, and then we took such a long time with the recording process this time that they were able to rework things as they went to write closer to the voice that each of the actors was providing. So, the character became more authentically like Courtenay as we went. I would say, and same goes with Brian, which is very cool. It's an opportunity you don't usually get in video games. Very often, a lot of even these very big games are recorded kind of all in the last 3 months before release, and it's this breakneck pace, and you're doing 100 lines an hour, and there's no time really 100. to sometimes more. There's no time really to to chase nuance and subtlety and naturalism, and this was the opposite of that. They brought us in very early, and they evolved the process as we went. It was great.
How does player customization affect the voice work? If you're going for a consistent character throughout, if the player chooses to put low intelligence or use certain perks that make the character sexy or negative karma, does that affect the overall voice performance, or does it affect certain lines in the game?
Well, there are certain things about the way the characterization and dialogue and perks and all that work that we're not necessarily privy to at this point. And even if we were, I think we probably couldn't discuss. But what I will say is this: these guys both recorded an enormous amount of dialogue. Which means that they recorded many, many options for different ways to approach each individual situation. And what our goal was always to just figure out a way to make it an authentic character choice, right? So knowing what we know about the background, which is fixed, just like in any Fallout game, the protagonist has a certain amount of story behind them. We always thought, okay, well, if this experience has made this person a nihilist or a rogue or a Boy Scout or whatever the approach was for all the different ways you might want to role play it, we said, what is the thought process that, knowing what we know, brings this person to that point, and then let's apply it to this version of this line. I'm a fan of these games. I played the hell out of 3 and out of New Vegas, even after we worked on it. And it was very much always in the forefront of our minds that there had to be an enormous amount of freedom to approach these situations any way you wanted to. But at the same time, if you're trying to build an emotional bridge to the player, and you're trying to touch them, then all the performances, have to they have to feel like real. So if you're hyped up on Psycho, it's got to be, it's got to be real. It's got to be what that would be like, for this person.
With a lot of games, and where you have a protagonist, you have a kind of there's an identity to the protagonist. There's kind of even in Mass Effect, the main protagonist had some character constraints to them, even though they did have the kind of that duality of Paragon and Renegade. But Fallout's always been a little bit more traditionally open, and the range has been much wider for the protagonist characterization. Was it hard to, how hard was it to maintain, to try to cater to that range, bringing a voiced protagonist in, while also making it feel like you're actually creating a real person? Was that, I feel like that would be hard to do.
Human beings, are capable of anything. Mm-hmm. And so I think once you get the bead on the fact that it's not a caricature of someone, especially with this much time and this much material, you have to take it on. That if you're playing the idea of something, it's going to be really super repetitive. It's not going to hold up to a million different situations. So once you embrace the idea that any character really is capable of anything, it's not, I mean, it wasn't difficult to me. It's just a person being in different situations. You could drop you or me or Cal into, the direst of situations, and you would be surprised what came out of someone. That wouldn't mean that it wasn't truthful or authentic to who you are. It's just you in a particular situation. So I guess I never thought of it as some kind of a, stumbling block. It was more freeing to me to think, as a person, I'm capable of being incredibly kind and violent and angry and, having this many hours of gameplay and possibilities. The world really is sort of your oyster.
Well, I'll say this, with a really excellent actor, or in this case, two really excellent actors, all that I really have to do is supply a reason why they're saying what they're saying. And they'll do the rest. And, this isn't different from any other Fallout game in a certain sense, because the words have always been there. They've just been there at the bottom of the screen. But a choice has been made. So when you were playing Fallout without a voiced player character, if you read that line, you'd hear it delivered in your head in a way that sounded natural and right and authentic to you. And you'd supply a reason why you're saying it. And what we always tried to do was just, take the text as gospel, and then create, figure out what the reason for that reaction is. There's that great in the movie about Capote with Philip Seymour Hoffman. There, they have this great bit where he's talking about how Capote feels like the one of the two killers from In Cold Blood is just like him. Like they grew up in the same house, and one of them went out the front door and one of them went out the back door. And as a result, their lives are completely different. And that was almost always our approach to this kind of thing. Events happen, story events happen to this character. And then that character being, you in this case, you get to choose how you want to react to it. And so when we were doing, any number of different shades of different kinds of reactions to any given situation, it was just about backing up to that initial choice, figuring out why you were making it, and then hitting it head on. So it really wasn't as difficult or constricting as you'd think. In a way, because there were so many options, it was actually kind of easier than just picking one characterization and one script, like you would in a feature film, because when the character is totally predefined in that way, you have this weird goal where you're trying to figure out what's going to be relatable to everybody in the audience. Yeah. And you're trying to find that. In this case, people are going to pick what they find relatable, and all you have to do is make it sound real.
Yeah. Sing the song the way it was
intended. Yeah, there's a music in the words, There's a music in the words.
Now, you both mentioned the quantity of material that you're addressing in this game. And earlier this week it was announced that there's going to be no level cap. So, Courtenay, you're going to have people playing with your voice in their head for hundreds of hours.
I'm so sorry.
That did not come out the way I'd intended it. And all of you snickering out there watching this on the internet, you have dirty minds. When you first got this gig, did you realize that there would be this degree of interaction between you and the player?
No, I mean, I don't think when I first got the game I understood anything about what I was taking on or, what I had been chosen to do. So no, I don't think I even realized. I get the news just like everybody else. So I'm reading stuff and being like, oh, okay. Whoa, that's a lot. I mean, I like that idea just from a consumer perspective, that I want people to get as much. I mean, I love having people. I had a guy on Twitter say, hey, I'm replaying Mass Effect, and I just found you as a different character, and this is a game, that hasn't been touched for, 3 or 4 years at this point. And I like the idea that it's kind of the gift that keeps on giving, that people can go through, they can play through a million different ways. They can keep finding things that if it's like a great book, where you go back and you reread and you're like, or you watch your favorite show and you're like, I missed that. Oh, check that out in the corner. A good movie is like that. So I think I'm happy about it. I think it elevates the art form, both from the developer end of things, of having to tackle that, and also it's such a gift to the people that buy the game and play the game and are loyal fans to be able to have something that they can continue to, enjoy for years.
There's definitely a perspective from which I was like, God damn it, Courtenay, Brian, why couldn't one of you have been terrible? Because then I would only have to play it 5 times. But instead, you were both fantastic, and you have a million different performances available. So if I want to hear everything we did, I'm going to have to play this game for like 6 years.
He's going to be hunting for those random aberrations in the audio that no one else notices. And be like, I heard that blip.
It's funny that you bring that up, because the number one thing that I try to be responsible for is making sure that there isn't a line that's a clunker. Like, we've all played games, where you choose, I want to say yes, and then it's like, it's way angrier than you expect, or just like, or it's clearly not, the emphasis is on the wrong word. We've all encountered those. It's particularly difficult to watch out for those in a game of this size. I mean, they're definitely going to be between 13 and 15,000 lines of dialogue for each player character. I think in total in the game, there's something, I'm ballparking this, so they'll be furious at Bethesda when I'm wrong, I'm sure, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 170,000 lines of recorded dialogue. It's just a huge amount in the game, because there's so many characters and they all have these great quests. And I'm not the only voice director, right? There are several other very talented voice directors on here. I'd like to give some props to Bennett Smith and Chris Fiala and Brenda Phillips and Philip. Did you say Bach or Bach? I never know how to say his last name. He's going to kill me. Bache. All exceptionally talented, all trying to do the same thing. That was Bethesda's directive from the beginning, which was shoot for naturalism, make this seem real, make it immersive. Don't let any of this take the player out of it. It's a Herculean task. I'm sure that there are a couple that we've missed, but by and large, more than any other game that I've worked on prior to this, I think they've been very successful at weeding that stuff out with this process, and a lot of that is due to just the talent of the actors, your talent, Brian's talent, and all the other great actors who worked on the game
that we can't talk about yet, but you're going to be stoked.
Who sank their teeth into it.
You talked about how this is the development of Fallout 4 was a little atypical of a lot of, at least the voice recording aspect, where it's usually a rush job, and you had, what you said, you started 2 years ago? So you started doing voice stuff? How does that feel, working on something for so long and then being near the end of it? Does it feel like you've kind of run a marathon? Do you have any, I feel like if I were in your shoes, I would have some emotional attachment to it while still being kind of exhausted. Is that weird?
Well, I mean, yeah. I started working on this game 4 years ago. We did our first initial, or not quite, but almost 4 years ago, we did our first performance capture tests then. So I've been with this iteration of Fallout for a long time, and working intensely with Courtenay and Brian, if not every week, then every couple of weeks since then. Just not seeing them on a semi-weekly basis is a little weird, right?
It's Brian. Right? You haven't seen Brian, but I come and stalk you all the time. I'm sitting here Cal at his place of work. And I was like, I'm in the neighborhood. Because I can't, Cal's like my blankie. I can't it's been a little embarrassing. I was like, okay, so here's the deal. If this thing is really over, you're okay with me stalking you, right? Because like I think it's been like every couple of weeks I'm coming like.
Well, we're friends in a way that we probably were not when we began this. Even in the most complicated quests where everybody's lying to everybody else and you're trying to figure out, am I telling the truth now? Am I lying? What's going on? We're doing multiple versions of this interaction and I don't know what anything is. Night is day,
Maybe I
black
put
is
the
white.
poison in front of you.
Right. Right. Even then, at the most stressful time, it was a pleasure to work with both of you. And so I think like for me at least, I'm anxious for the game to come out, right? Because we've done a lot of really good work. And the guys at Bethesda have done even more amazing work. And I really want the fans to see that. And I'm a fan, so I want to play it. You know what I mean? And so like from that respect, it's like, thank God, finally it's going to come out. The part that creates separation anxiety for me is just like, I like working with these people. I love working with both Brian and Courtenay. I love working with Emil and all the writers on the Bethesda side. Mark Lampert, the audio director there, who was a genius.
Such a great dude.
Such a good dude. I mean, he was the guy who on day one, when we were like, hey, can we like have this be super naturalistic and let them like exhale and, sigh and cough and feel like real people? And he was like, yeah, go crazy. We want it to feel as real as possible. And we did. You know what I mean? Like he gave us that leeway and it's made it immeasurably better. So working with those people is what is hard to like give up, at least temporarily.
I feel like, every job I go into, I know I'm pretty much unemployed at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think we're lucky in voiceover that we get to work with a lot of the same people on different projects. But this version of work for me has been especially sweet because I remember thinking when we first started doing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like when they said, the projected amount of work it was going to be. I was like, that's never going to end. It's crazy. And I remember hitting like the year mark and being like, we're only halfway through. It's never going to, like, it just felt like it was so,
forever.
Yeah, it was. It was like summer camp. Like I just am really aware of every moment of every hour, like it'll go slower somehow. And then it started to speed up the last year. And I was like, wait, no. It's going too fast. And so now, there was the part about having to keep my mouth shut about working on the game. That was incredibly difficult. So once we got to talk about that, it was like letting some steam out of a pressure cooker. I said it was like being pregnant with an elephant and finally after 2 years you give birth, which makes no sense from a human. But it was, it was this huge thing and I knew it was such a great project and everything. So I was relieved to be able to talk about it. I do want to get it out there because I know everyone is antsy and anticipating this. But on the other hand, if they were like, you know what, we're going to turn this into like a regular thing and you get to be in Fallout for the rest of your life, I would be okay with that. I would be like, I will definitely look forward to this session once a week. I learned so much from Cal. I love the guys in the studios that we used and the guys on the other end of the phone. We got to play so much. And a lot of the time it isn't that we don't get to play. It's just that there's time constraints and that maybe your character has some narrower parameters on it and is meant to be a little bit more one note or a little bit more on the nose. And this was more like getting to be in like a super big swimming pool and you get to swim in the, you get to dive in sometimes and you get to, slowly walk in the short steps some days. It really was such an incredible experience. So I will definitely miss that.
So something that I've noticed in the trailers we've seen for Fallout 4 so far is that they're featuring the male protagonist with, let's go, pal, and, wanna go fuck some shit up. And it seems like most of the classic post-apocalyptic fiction has had male protagonists, with, Mad Max being, by far, the cultural icon of the apocalyptic world. So you are, Courtenay, you're going to become an icon of the female protagonist in post-apocalyptic fiction. Have you thought about that yet?
No, I have not actually thought about that. But, I'm incredibly excited that they've put a female character player. I'm excited to see that the tide is turning with far more inclusion with women, and I'm excited to see that, in the past few years that there is a real interest in seeing women in these roles. I think, like with Mad Max, I mean, nobody talked about Tom Hardy. Sorry, Tom Hardy. People were really enthralled with Charlize Theron and her performance, her look, and I think there's always been like that. I mean, Linda Hamilton and Terminator and Sigourney Weaver, and this it's just kind of an untapped thing. Like, people have kind of put forth projects where it was a big deal, and then it kind of gets, I don't know, paved over a little bit or forgotten about, or maybe people don't think that kind of stuff is going to sell. But I feel like now is the heyday for these kinds of characters. And there's almost more, because it's not something that we've seen as much. There's more like, fuck yeah to it, because there's a wider range, I think, for a woman to play. I think it's more encompassing to see a woman do these kinds of things. Obviously, I'm biased, but I'm totally thrilled to have the opportunity to be, in one of those slots, if that's what this becomes. I don't understand why there isn't more of it. I don't understand why it's not raining badass chicks all the time, because they're so much fun to watch and to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the default in games, for whatever reason, in so many marketing materials for every game, still seems to be like, white guy. But there really are quite a few games now where, you can define yourself however you want to. And there's a lot more diversity in games even than there in a lot of the best games than there, are in films and on television. I mean, Dragon Age has a trans character in it. They've for a long time let you, pick your orientation, pick your race, pick your height, pick your gender, all this stuff. So, and Fallout is the same way. They really want the character to be, whatever you most relate to, or whatever person you want to make up. If you're trying to approach it like a writer. I mean, I definitely think that more games should feature like some of these non-white guy versions of the character on the box art. You know what I mean? I think that would more accurately reflect the audience, which is incredibly diverse.
Yeah, the Fallout franchise has always been ahead of the game regarding that. They've had playable female protagonists right from the beginning, and there's actually a scene in Fallout 2 where you can meet the cut black male protagonist who was going to be in the first game, and he has some funny dialogue about how he was going to be in the game and was then cut before it hit the market.
Yeah, and what's cool about science fiction, and fantasy, as opposed to doing like a World War II epic, right, is like there are no historical constraints.
Right.
Like, we know exactly how many men and women were on Omaha Beach, but we don't know exactly how many men and women were wandering the wasteland. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of freedom. There's absolutely no reason that the hero can't be like Furiosa. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that movie in particular, I mean, is something that people... I loved the fact that they had, different age groups of women, and that was what people talked about. It wasn't the thing that hamstrung the movie. It was the thing that elevated the movie and made it more interesting. And, I mean, God, we can only hope for a time when you're like, badass female protagonist again.
Again, yeah, I know.
But
All right, so I want to bring up some viewer questions now, if that's okay with you guys. Okay, so a bunch of people want to know, how thick are the Boston accents?
Not every character. It's not every character is going to be like, speaking in a thick Boston accent. They're not going. It's not going to be Wicked Super Mutants guy. But there's some. There's the flavor of that region enough to satisfy a native Bostonian and a New Englander like myself. But you don't worry about having to hear 175,000 lines of recorded Boston accent. It varies enormously.
I've just been waiting for wah never changes.
God.
All right, so we've got a couple more Twitter questions here. Several people asked this. A Space Ostrich and Morvalera. They both ask, how did you get started with voice acting, and what would you recommend to someone who wants to try?
I actually got started in college. I took an acting class because I thought it'd be an easy A, but I was totally incorrect. But I was kind of hooked on the challenge of it. So I went and took classes. I studied at American Conservatory Theater. And it's the best thing that I ever did, because even though I love talking, I love reading out loud, all of those things, the things that have served me the best have been the actual acting, voice and speech, and scene study classes that I took, improv as well. I, for one, continue to take classes.
I have all the best. You're not alone. All the best actors that I've ever worked with, all the best directors that I've ever worked with, for that matter, keep refining their abilities all the way through their careers. They take, even when they're giants in the industry like Courtenay, they keep taking classes. They keep working at getting better. That's the number one piece of advice I think I can give to people is, like, don't be too proud to learn something and be assiduous about going out to learn things, and try other kinds of acting and performance that you're less comfortable with, because they will inform your work for sure.
I think people come under they have this idea that as long as you can make funny voices, or if you can do really good imitations of people who are already doing those things, that's what it's about. I have never, I don't think, worked under those notions. It's always been about the truth of the scene, of everything. That I wish I could go back actually to acting school, because the classes that I was like, masks class again, and now I'm like, oh, masks class, how great is that? The physicality, what a dum-dum I was. I was like, all these things that I'll never use this. And it's always been the things that I've said, I'll never use this, that are the things that I've used the most. I think for video game stuff too, and I don't know that, I think dance and physical activities. I ran a boxing gym when I was out of college, and that certainly stood me in good stead. Knowing how to throw a punch, how to take a punch, to know what it feels like to get hit. I don't recommend everybody go out and start beating up people.
But you wouldn't think just being in front of the microphone that your body mattered so much, but it really does. You need good wind.
Yeah.
And you need a sense of physicality, because you have to be able to put the sense of running and jumping and sitting and walking and all this sort of stuff that normally your body would convey on camera. You have to be able to put all that into your voice without actually moving so much that we can hear the movement on the mic. So yeah, definitely, it's more physical than people think.
But I was auditioning for a program, a master's program in New York, and the guy was like, "Your voice is terrible. You have vocal cord nodes. You'll never play to the back of a theater with that voice." I feel like no is just yes to a different question, and that's sort of my motto for life. And just because someone tells you that maybe that your instrument or what you do doesn't serve what they're looking to fill doesn't mean that you're not going to find your place. So if it is truly what you want to do, if you want to put the work in to do this work, and it is a lot of work and it's a lot of competition, and when you're good and ready to get out there, you're going to be competing against the people that you love who do this work, but that doesn't mean it's a no. So if anybody tells you that you can't do it, if this is your calling, if this is what you're passionate about, do not listen to anyone and just go.
Yep.
Go.
Keep working. Just keep working on it.
One final thing from our viewers. Kiki Wonka and the Nowhere Man 99 and several other people have asked for you to say, "You ready to fuck some shit up?"
You ready to fuck some shit up?
Yeah, that's going to be ringtones
Yes,
all
ma'am.
over the country and, Thursday night.
We got early access to the fuck word from Courtenay Taylor here on GNN.
We do a weekly segment here called Irresponsible Speculations, where, we encourage the viewers to submit things that they think might be happening on the game, and we, of course, as distinguished journalists, insist that, yes, they're all correct. So you guys don't have to make irresponsible speculations. You can just blurt out truths about the game. People will lose their jobs when you say these things. It'll have horrible, horrible consequences for real people. So if you guys would like to play along with our irresponsible speculations, do you have any outlandish speculations that you could make and state them with a straight voice?
Well, I think that on November 10th, everyone is going to learn that Vault 111 is made entirely of chocolate.
This is something that if you look really closely in the E3 trailer, you can actually see hints about this.
Yeah, just foil wrapped like one of those Santas.
Exactly. And actually, my character eats my way out of the vault.
That would explain why they're the only survivor. They have the best metabolism out of everyone. Everyone else tried, but they couldn't do it.
It was a Vault-Tec experiment on type 1 diabetes, and your character had the insulin stock.
No, the way the game ends is that actually my character and Ron Perlman ride off into the sunset together, holding hands on matching death throes.
Yep.
I'm trying to imagine Ron Perlman holding hands with anybody.
I did get to work with Ron. I will say that. That's something I can say because he's been in the trailer. I did get to work with Ron, and he's very cool. Dude.
See, he would hold my hand.
He would totally hold your hand.
See, I wish I had been able to. If you do any pickups with him, let me know because I'm going to come hold his hand because I like him.
He has a massive physical presence that you see him in movies and you're like, that looks like a big scary dude. He is that. He actually seems like a bigger guy in a room when you stand there with him than he does on camera. It's insane. Yeah, he's something else. But he's
I
a
think
very good actor and very fun to work with.
What the choice will really be is if you play as Brian and he gets to ride off into the sunset.
Absolutely, because you
can do that because it's Fallout.
Because it's Fallout.
And everyone wants to ride off into the sunset with Ron Perlman.
Yes.
Clearly.
Okay, all right. So one actual, mostly serious question to ask Courtenay. So you're in Mass Effect and Fallout now. So in your experience, which community of fans is most enthusiastic?
I know the BioWare peeps pretty well. The Mass Effect fans are, we've had a love affair for coming on, 6 years, something like that. So I definitely know those guys. I go to conventions and I see this, certain people over and over again. They're my friends on Twitter. I will turn around at a convention and be like, "It's you! Oh my gosh, Chris Cotter! I love you!" They're my little posse, and I adore. It's been an amazing start of a beautiful relationship with this group of fans. And then now, I think I went to. I was in New Zealand, and they had just announced Fallout, and they actually stuck a piece of paper up on my banner that said, because there was pictures of Jack and whatnot, and they stuck a piece of paper on that said, female protagonist Fallout 4, and people were running up and being like, "Oh my God, oh!" And I was like, "Oh, okay, this is different." It's from what I can tell so far on Twitter, it's a little bit more. This group has a little more mischief.
I was just blown away by those dudes who extrapolated the size of the map and the location of all the features from looking at like 7 screenshots. I don't know if you guys have seen that YouTube video. There's a guy who's like, I'm an engineer and I can tell that this is probably this hill. And if you look on Google Maps, the map will probably be this scale. And I was like, first of all, I have no way of knowing if that's true, but I'm persuaded. People are willing to do an amazing amount of brain work in connection with this franchise. You know
to be fair, I got outed at one point as Jack before someone figured it out from a charity poster that I had signed because I put a skull and crossbones on it, and somehow from my signature and the skull and crossbones, they were like, I think this, I've connected each signature with every person that's in the game, and the only person that has not been named is, and I was like, wow, from a skull and crossbones. Okay. I have to be a little more careful about that kind of stuff. So I think no matter what franchise it is that you're passionate about, I mean, I'm sure you could say the same about Game of Thrones or anything like that, but this group of people that I have so far just met on Twitter, very funny, like a great sense of humor about things, and definitely some mischief abounding. It's a little bit of a tougher room, I think, as far as like if you make a joke or like they'll definitely come back with some zingers, which I think is going to make this a very interesting and spicy relationship moving forward. So I'm totally looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the Fallout Floodgates opening.
What's it like being under all that scrutiny as someone who spends all their time basically in a room by themselves to have these very meticulous fans suddenly like comparing your signature to something here and there? Like what is that like? Is it surreal at all, or is it nice to have the social media distance?
It's interesting because it's the thing that you think about with an on-camera actor, where you go like, oh, of course, that's one of the perks is like people know who you are or whatever. For me, I do spend so much time with people not knowing that when people do, it's sort of shocking. Where people, if they stop you at a convention, you're like, I don't have any change. What, like, hold on. And then, okay. It's a shock. But I think what is exceptionally great about doing this line of work is that actually there isn't a lot of distance with social media. And so even though there's distance in that, like I can, go to the supermarket and nobody's going to say anything to me, that I can actually have people that I meet on Twitter and then they show up at a convention and I feel like I already know them and I've had great conversations with them and I've seen artwork that they've done and I get a sense of who they are to some degree. So for me, like, had Twitter existed when I was a kid, like the fact that you can reach out, and this is certainly not, based on me, but like that I could tweet, Mark Hamill, and there's a great chance that he'll tweet me back, or Alec Baldwin, or different musicians, or you could actually get advice on how to do something that this person does directly. To me, like, that's the crazy upshot to all of this, is that in one sense there really isn't a ton of distance, and I kind of love that. It feels like it's just me and my friends hanging out.
All right, do you guys have any upcoming projects that are non-Fallout related that you'd like to promote to our listeners?
There's some cool stuff coming out that I can't. This is such a boring, stupid answer, but it's like, I've been in some really cool stuff, but I can't talk about it. In the next couple of weeks, there will be, there's a project I'm very proud of that will be coming out that's very exciting. And check back with me. September and October is going to be fun. And of course, November 10th. But I'm doing the Firefly Online game. I can talk about that. We're working on that as we speak. And that is another group of very rabid fans. So I'm getting, trial by fire in a few different franchises now. And I am continuing to work on regular show as Starla, who is the gorgeous, green, rational girlfriend of Muscle Man, if you are a Cartoon Network regular show fan. And I think that's all I can talk about right now.
I just sold a screenplay. I think I can talk about it. It's called On the Lam. and it's a comedy, and hopefully it'll be coming out sometime next year. We're in pre-production right now. It's like a kind of like The Fugitive passed through the digestive tract of Bridesmaids. It's like two young women get accused of a murder they didn't commit, and they have to go on the lam and try and prove their innocence on their video blog. So, and then let's see, what do I actually want to plug? I worked on a Star Wars app, a little Star Wars app called Star Wars Heroes Path recently, overseeing a very talented writer named Chris Viola, who's also a voice director that we mentioned earlier. And it's a great little strategy game app. It hasn't sold terribly well. I don't know why, but I encourage anyone who wants to kill some great time on their iPad in the classic Star Wars way to check that out. That one's real fun.
All right, guys, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It was great. I'll see you guys November 10th.
And thank you for tuning in. Be sure to join us every Friday for new episodes of Fallout Lore, The Storyteller, and every week for new episodes of Hidden History. And don't forget, this Sunday is the season finale of The New Adventures of Grognak the Barbarian.